Turkey is looking for help, but it's unclear how much help they want. NATO is holding an emergency meeting Tuesday at Ankara's request. Joining me now to talk about this meeting and what could come out of it is Joshua Walker. He's a foreign policy analyst with extensive experience in Turkey, and he thanks so much for coming in. Let me start there. I mean, you know some of the players and have been in contact with them. What are you hearing?
You know, what's interesting is I think that in the U.S., this is being greeted as a big, major change. It's being called a game changer, and it certainly is in terms of Turkey getting off the sidelines. I think Ankara is frustrated by the fact that they've said, we've been there from the beginning here. We've been focusing on 2 million refugees. They've been all over our borders. This is nothing new. We've been doing this for a while. Why is Washington, why is the West having such a strong reaction to all this?
Passive and now aggressive, though some people are saying. It really has tried to stay on the sidelines and not get involved. Can you give us why, the reasoning behind that?
I mean, look, at the beginning of the rise of ISIL, one of the first things they did was conquer Mosul, and they took over the Turkish consul general. And they were able to basically hold all the Turkish consul general and the people hostage. Turkey was the only country able to negotiate them free. Every day we were watching another American, another Brit getting their head taken off. Not a single Turk has lost their life in that way because the government has been very careful. In Syria, Turkey looks at Assad as the #1 threat, Kurds in their own Kurdish region as a second threat, and ISIS is just another of the opposition groups. Sure, they're Islamists, sure they've got problems, but they did not see them as big of a threat as Washington did. And so as a result of having the longest border with Syria, obviously at some point in time what's happening in Syria will blow over into Turkey.
Well, let me go where you just went, because you brought up the PKK. One Turkish think tank fellow, a researcher there, did a comparison online on these sorties. There was a limited sortie against ISIL. He said there are 300 smart bombs dropped on numerous PKK targets, and that basically the U.S. needed Turkey on board, and Turkey kind of sees this as an opportunity to kind of settle old scores. Do you agree with that?
I think there might be some truth to that. I think certainly Turkey is going to take advantage of its own interests, right? I mean, when ISIL struck Turkey, they were the first ones to draw blood. They killed a Turkish soldier. Turkey has retaliated. Now, when you look at what the U.S. and Turkey have agreed together on, it may not be all that it appears to be on the surface in terms of using American airplanes to strike. Turkey has its own interest here. And while Turkey clearly wants to take out all terrorist organizations, for them, that predominantly means the PKK. For Washington, that means ISIL.
There's this old saying, no battle plan ever survives first contact with the enemy. Of course, the U.S. is touting this as you said, a game changer. Can you talk to us about some of the problems that could arise as a result of this? And if everything goes as expected and the U.S. is successful with this, what is the other outcome? I mean, how do you see it going either way?
Unfortunately, in the Middle East and from the Ottoman times that Turkey has a long history with, things have never gone according to plan. And I think the biggest fear here in Washington is, look, if we agree to the safe zone that Turkey has requested in terms of creating a no-fly zone, a buffer zone, Washington does not want to talk about a safety zone, does not want to talk about a no-fly zone, because that means that no matter what Turkey does unilaterally, we will have to step into the breach. And given that the Kurds have been the strongest fighting force for us in the region on boots on the ground, and Washington does not want another ground war in Syria, there could be some major ramifications. If we have one of our airplanes shot out of the sky, there's Turkish soldiers that are injured in some type of operation. This is going to lead to a much larger conflict that the president has already said does not want to continue. But if the Turks want to take this unilaterally, they have the second largest army in NATO. And I think that in many ways, Turkey will need Washington and NATO behind it, as we'll see tomorrow during the NATO session.
That brings me to the next question. What do you expect to come out of that meeting?
You know, unfortunately, what I expect is very strong rhetoric. I wonder what action will look like. I think that they will all stand behind Turkey. I think Turkey, everyone universally agrees that Turkey has a right to respond to any terrorist organization, including both ISIL and the PKK. But I think NATO is going to be very cautious here because this conflict has been going on for a long time now. As Turkey begins to think about what its options are, Turkey's going to have to be out front. It's going to have to lead into these operations. And I think NATO and the United States will be behind them. The question is how much behind them.
But Syria has always been a moving target. I mean, initially, Turkey and the United States very much in agreement Assad has to go. Now it seems like things have morphed. Now there's a focus on ISIL. Yeah, of course, we'd like Assad to go. Seems to be the U.S. mantra, but it's kind of, things have changed, and things have a way of changing kind of dramatically over time. Talk to me about that.
I mean, I think that the regional dynamics here cannot be underestimated. And even more than the regional dynamics, don't forget that Turkey has its own domestic politics here. They do not have a government since June 7th. As a result, everything that's going on currently in Turkey, many people are saying President Erdogan is using this to show his leadership and strength as they try to find a government, et cetera. The real question here is what does the region look like after this? Right now, Iran is fighting very closely with Assad, and so Turks are not happy about that. The Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, others. So bringing Turkey into the anti-ISIS coalition directly in the military side is a huge win, and it's a game changer for the United States. However, the question is how far will Turkey go, and how much will they spend their time, kind of score settling with the PKK versus going after ISIS and ISIL like we think.
We don't have any time, but I have to ask, because you said it, what does it look like after?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that the Turks, when they get themselves in the game, they go all out. And I think that with Turkey on board, that ISIS's days are numbered at this point in time. But I think at the same time, there are going to be a lot of hiccups and bumps along the road as well, unfortunately, be seeing.
Joshua Walker, thanks so much for coming in. Certainly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.